Now, there's one other comet that I'm sure folks are very familiar with, back about 17 years ago, Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9.
Yeah. So in 1992, Gene Shoemaker and his wife Carolyn Shoemaker and one of their associates, David Levy, discovered a comet near Jupiter. So it was in a frame containing Jupiter. They were shooting on basically glass plates, shooting with I think it was a 40-inch telescope out by Palomar. And they saw this smudge, and they didn't really know what to make of it right away, because there was some question that the frame might have been damaged, exposed to light, and so they didn't know it was something that was exposed to light and it was a smudge for that reason or what. And so they asked a bigger observatory, I think it was with a 60-inch scope, to image it, and said, you know, do we have a comet here? And they said, oh yeah, you've got a comet, but it's really, really strange. And it turned out that as this comet, Shoemaker-Levy 9, as it passed Jupiter, it broke apart, and it broke apart into a lot of pieces, over 20 pieces. And these pieces swung around in orbit, and 2 years later, in 1994, they crashed into Jupiter. And
I think we have the image of the string of pearls of Shoemaker-Levy 9.
So the Hubble Space Telescope took this awesome shot. So it looks like a whole series of comets, which sort of it is, right? And astronomers labeled them A, B, C, you know, really imaginative names. You know, they do this. A, B, C through, like, I don't know, X or something, I forget. And I actually went down to, I was living in Philadelphia, and I went down to the Franklin Institute, and they've got a couple 20-inch, roughly 20-inch telescopes on their roof that they built in the 30s. And Jupiter's a very bright object, and so despite the light pollution in Philadelphia, you could still see these spots. And I got to see the G spot and one of the others, I forget. And they were huge. These scars on the cloud decks of Jupiter were you know, many times the diameter of the Earth. They were just absolutely humongous, and they lasted for months.
I remember seeing some of those images from Hubble, and it was just fascinating to see them strung out across the cloud tops of Jupiter.
So so we talked about how Comet Botha had broken up and had disappeared. Well, in 1994, we saw that not only do comets break up, but we also have comets that actually strike planets, and in our lifetime, right? So at the time, in 1994, one of the estimates was that comets strike Jupiter about every 500 years, and in fact, the Japanese discovered in their archives a hand drawing of Jupiter with spots that looked suspiciously like the spots that Shoemaker-Levy 9 left on Jupiter. So perhaps we were seeing something about 400 years ago. It would have been in the early days of the telescope.
This has been truly a fascinating conversation, Steve. I mean, we're all familiar with comets back in ancient times and even up to more modern times. Comets were seen as bringers of bad luck, a bad omen, but now we just know that basically they're just dirty snowballs. And we hope you've enjoyed this conversation, and we'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back. We're here again with Steve Whitty to talk a little bit more about comets. Steve, we've got some news about a comet, Anne Frank.
Right, Anne Frank is an asteroid.
Oh,
so we were talking about the Stardust mission,
Yes.
which visited Wilt 2, the comet Wilt 2, and then it had the second visit of Temple 1. But before it even made it to Wilt 2, it had a flyby of asteroid Anne Frank. So asteroid Anne Frank is one of these fairly large rocks that orbits pretty much between Mars and Jupiter. So it's one of many asteroids that are known. It's one of only a handful of asteroids that have been visited up close, and you know, the others are like Gaspra and Ida with its sort of moon, if you will. It has an even smaller asteroid Dactyl, which orbits it. That was a big surprise when that came out. So yeah, so the Stardust mission got really 3 for 1.
Got a real bang for our buck on that one?
We got a lot of bang for our buck. I just wanted to mention that Stardust actually had a shield on it.
Okay.
And it was called the Whipple shield, and we'll talk about Whipple in a minute. So let's see what was next up.
Well, we were going to talk about Mr. Whipple and his book from the 80s.
That's right.
Yeah.
So right around 1994, when Shoemaker-Levy 9 slammed into Jupiter, and the bits of it slammed in alphabetical order, I was reading this book, The Mystery of Comets by Fred Whipple. And Fred was a researcher. He was an astronomer, and he didn't like set out on his career to learn about comets, but he was working for Harvard, and his boss basically said, we need somebody to study comets. And so for a great portion of his career, he studied comets, and he became the expert. He came up with the dirty snowball image. Anyway, I read his book, and when I got to chapter 9, I was absolutely astonished, because in chapter 9 he says, all comets break up. And what was astounding to me is that I'd never heard this before. And I had just witnessed Shoemaker-Levy 9 breaking up into, you know, spectacularly. And Whipple basically said, well, you know, they all break up. They get close to the sun, and the sun makes the volatiles, you know, expand or explode, and the things break up. That's
gravitational pull.
That's right, absolutely. So, so that was amazing.
Sounds like a very interesting book, but it's out of print, right?
That's right. That's right.
Well, maybe we can find it on the web somewhere.
Maybe on eBay or Amazon or something. You
One never knows.
Yeah.
If you have any questions on any of the topics that we talk about, please send us an email. You can see our email address down at the bottom of your screen. We appreciate the ones that you have sent us. And of course, if you'd like any more information, please go to our website. That address is also at the bottom of your screen. And right after this, we'll be back with Term of the Month.
The term of the month for June 2011 is asteroid. So what is an asteroid? So first, we're going to talk about what the word is. It comes from 2 sort of root words, aster, which means star-like, and oid, well, oid is sort of like, so it's star-like. And what they meant was that in early telescopes, and for the most part in any telescopes, asteroids are point-like objects. They don't resolve into a disk like planets do. So typically they're objects that orbit the sun, and they're not big enough to be planets, but also they're not comets. So they don't have a coma like comets do. They don't have a tail. There are an awful lot of asteroids that have been found in the solar system. There are over 535,000 registered comets with the Minor Planet Center. 251,651, as of yesterday, have orbits established that are good enough so that they can be given permanent numbers, catalog numbers. And there are over 16,000 asteroids that have names, like we had in Anne Frank earlier. The first of the asteroids is named Ceres. It was discovered in 1801. And it has more recently been reclassified as a dwarf planet because it is really quite large. These asteroids, for the most part, they're not comets, but there is some crossover. The quadrantid meteor shower in January is thought to be caused by asteroid 2003 EH1, which we think used to be called C1490Y1, a comet that was discovered 500 years ago. The volatiles are gone. Term of the month for June 2011 is asteroid.
Making the world a better place is an intricate puzzle. And piece by piece, the women and men of Rotary have worked hard to fight hunger, promote literacy, and move the world toward peace. But there is still much to be done, still some missing pieces. And one of those missing pieces is you. Learn how you can help Rotary put together a better world.
What's up in the night sky for June 2011? The month starts off, and I really mean starts off on the 1st with a new moon. Now normally you don't see the new moon, but in May I happen to see the very thin crescent moon just a day after new moon in the west as the sun set, and it was great. It was awesome. First quarter is on the 9th of June. The full moon is on the 15th of June. And the last quarter is on the 23rd of June. These are basically midweek weekdays. In the evening, for basically the whole month, Saturn is the big show. It's the king of the planets. In fact, it's pretty much the only planet that you normally see, that you easily see in June. But toward the end of June, Mercury starts being visible low in the west after sunset, starting maybe the 20th, and it gets better as time goes on. All of the other planets are morning planets: Mars, Jupiter, Venus, and they're all low near the sun, but as the month goes on, Jupiter gets higher in the sky. June 21st is the summer solstice. It's the first day of summer, but it's also pretty much the longest day. So sunrise is at almost 5 in the morning, and sunset is a little after 8 in the evening. So the nights are short, less than 9 hours. Back in the evening, in mid-June, if you look straight up, you'll pretty much see the constellation Boötes, and nearby it is the constellation Hercules. There's a glorious object, M13, in Hercules, and if you've got a telescope or even binoculars, it's a great tight cluster of stars. So that's what's up in the night sky for June 2011.